As Congress returns for the new year, one of the biggest questions on lawmakers' minds is whether the Trump administration has plans to target other countries besides Venezuela. The president last night threatening military action against the government of Colombia and once again expressing a desire to take over Greenland. Trump also taking aim at Cuba, suggesting the country is, quote, ready to fall. Here to discuss is the Hill's White House columnist, Niall Stanage. Niall, thanks so much for joining us. The president has been ramping up this aggressive rhetoric about Latin American countries beyond just Venezuela. What's he saying now about Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba?
Well, I think generally, Judy, he's sort of beating the drum in a fairly threatening way about all of those places. Now, what he's saying about each nation is slightly different. Obviously, Cuba has been a target of the United States for decades, since the time of Fidel Castro. Trump, as you read in your introduction, suggesting that regime might somehow fall apart or is in trouble there. Now, with Mexico and Colombia, Colombia particularly, he seems to be blaming them for the drug trade or for the importation of drugs into the United States, saying that they need to take firmer action against that. Of course, there's a whole more skeptical response, which is about how Trump has moved against Venezuela, whether that's really about it's oil rather than anything else.
Are the Venezuelan operations now the start of a wider U.S. crackdown on countries that the White House deems aren't in line with the Trump administration's agenda on drugs?
Well, that's certainly the concern, I would say, in relation to Colombia. But I do also think that the situation is a bit more complex, and this is why some people are skeptical that this is really about drugs. To take just one example, cocaine transits through Ecuador more so than it ever did through Venezuela. But the premier of Ecuador is a centre-right to right-leaning figure. There's no suggestion of toppling him. So I think there's a whole nexus of political concerns as well as the drug issue that is playing out here.
As Congress begins to return here to Washington, what are some of the early reactions coming in from lawmakers about the capture of Nicolás Maduro?
No surprise that a lot of that splits along partisan lines, I think, Judy. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Thomas Massie, for example, the Republican congressman, has been pretty skeptical. Massie is often a minority within his own party. He's basically like the Rand Paul of the House. Both Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are libertarians. They are suspicious or skeptical of what they see as overreach on the part of the president. We see a lot of criticism from Democrats, of course, believing that this action is illegal, is a power grab, is rash and ill thought out. Most Republicans, with the exceptions of people like Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, have been broadly supportive of the president's actions.
Niall, as you know, President Trump also once again expressing interest in Greenland. And after what happened in Venezuela, should Denmark and Greenland be wary of possible U.S. military action?
Probably. I mean, it seems in some ways like a surreal thing to think about. One is very unaccustomed to seeing Greenland as any kind of conflict zone or potential conflict zone. But the president has been talking about needing Greenland for national security purposes, things of that nature. Obviously, that puts a target on Greenland. It's something that the Danish Prime Minister has pushed back quite strongly against, but it is something that has become at least more salient, I would say, within the past 72 hours or so.
President Trump about to begin his second year of his second term in office. What do all these words and actions say about the future of his foreign policy agenda?
I think they say that the non-interventionism that he was supposed to represent has really gone by the wayside. You know, there were a lot of people, I mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene a moment ago, people of that America First wing were often very opposed to interventionism. Marjorie Taylor Greene still is. But when we look at this intervention in Venezuela, we look at the president deciding to strike Iran last year, the skepticism of intervention has obviously weakened to a very significant degree, and I think can reasonably be expected to continue to do so.
Niall Stanage, the Hill's White House columnist, always with incredible insight. Niall, thank you.
Thanks, Judy.